Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our May genealogy class using vital records to research your ancestors. We just have a couple things to go over before we get going. First, we acknowledge that the Boston Public Library's Central Library stands on land that was once a water-based ecosystem, providing sustenance for the indigenous Massachusetts people, and is a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange among nations. We are committed to land acknowledgements for all locations at which we operate. We reaffirm this commitment to set the context for our planning. Deliberations and public engagement will take place from the spirit of welcome and respect, found in our motto, free to all. So another couple items of business. First off, the chat box is open. If you would like to say hi, feel free and tell us where you're coming from. Please feel free, but not obligated to. All chat messages during the presentation and the Q&A period should be related to the topic of the presentation. This includes all questions, comments, and any resources you may want to share. We also ask that you please be respectful of me and all of the other attendees. Also, I will do my best to make sure I get to everyone's questions during the Q&A period. If I don't get to your question before the program ends, you can please feel free to contact us at ask@bpl.org, and someone will get back to you. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jessie Wheeler. I'm the genealogy specialist here at the Boston Public Library. I work at the Central Library in Copley Square in the Research Services Department. And yes, and this is just a lovely picture of the courtyard. Oh, I see we have a few people locally. That's great. I'm also going to be putting a link to the handout in the chat right now, just in case folks missed it beforehand. And just a couple more things before we get going. This program is being recorded, and I'll be sending a link to the recording to everyone who has registered once it has been uploaded. You can also keep an eye on the BPL's YouTube channel and the genealogy playlist. Also, I will be sending a follow-up email to everyone tomorrow that will include a link to my slides, so you don't need to worry if you miss anything. And also you will have a link to the chat transcript. So if you miss something in the chat, don't worry, you'll be able to get that there. So you can just feel free to watch and enjoy. No. Okay. So our topic today is vital records. So we're going to go over some basic things about what vital records are, some useful things to know about them. We're going to talk about where they are, how to get to them, how to find them. I'm going to talk about some resources available at the Boston Public Library, and as well as some resources from elsewhere. So first up, what are vital records? Vital records are government-produced records, this is key, that document births, marriages, and deaths. Some folks like to categorize divorce records among this, but they're not as commonly used, so we're not going to be covering them too much here. And they are records that can contain information about person's residence or occupation, in addition to the usual information about who their parents are, especially with birth records, with their spouses, in the case of marriage records, as well as who their children are. So this will vary. The information in these records will vary depending on where and when you're looking at. So a couple of other good things to know. In Massachusetts, with a very few exceptions, such as birth certificates of adoptees, vital records are considered public record and can be requested by anybody. You get enough information about someone, you can go to the city clerk's office at their hometown and get their birth certificate. Most of them are going to be public record. But again, that's just Massachusetts. Laws regarding how vital records are collected, who takes care of them, how they are accessed, that's going to vary from state to state. Some states are going to have more restrictions than others. In Massachusetts, we're kind of spoiled here because we can get to them relatively easily. So some records may think will have this similar information, things like obituaries, baptism records, but they are not really considered vital records. Vital records, the main thing that makes them vital records is they are produced by the government. The obituaries and baptism records and some church records can also be very useful, but they are not considered vital records for our purposes here. So where are these records? So again, for Massachusetts, it's gonna vary. So if you're looking for something from before 1841, your best bet would be to go to the city or town of occurrence, if you know what that is. For Boston, that's going to be the registry division down at our lovely City Hall building. That will cover 1630 to the present. That's not guaranteeing that they will have the birth record for your ancestor who was born here in the 1630s, but they do have a few. For everywhere else in Massachusetts, these records are maintained by the town or city clerk's office. It's part of the duties of the office is to maintain vital records and provide copies. Excuse me, pollen this week, terrible. From 1841 to 1930, you could get those records. Again, your best bet would be the city or town of occurrence, but then if you don't know where that is, the Massachusetts State Archives would have those records. From 1931 to the present, again, it would be a city or town of occurrence, or the Massachusetts Registry of Vital Records and Statistics, which is in both of these organizations, the Archives and Vital Records Office are in Dorchester near the JFK Library. If you're all familiar with that area, that's where all of that stuff is. So for other states, like I said, I think a lot of you are from Massachusetts, so not as much of this will apply, but for those of you who are maybe visiting us from out of state, again, like I said, the procedures are going to be different depending on where you are. It might even vary from county to county or city to city. And this is something I say a lot, regardless of what you're researching. Contact the local or state library where you're researching, because chances are someone at the library will know where you need to go. And that's just for anything, not just vital records. If you're researching someone who is from a particular place, contact the library or the biggest library near wherever that is. They can help you. So I just included these as an example. Again, these are going to be included in the slide link that you will get tomorrow. So as I said, for instance, so for Massachusetts, it's the Registry of Vital Records and Statistics. You can see here a lot of states in the Northeast, these records are handled by the Department of Health. New Hampshire, it's the Vital Records Administration. They have a specific agency for that. Connecticut, much like Massachusetts, has the State Vital Records Office. It's a very similar name. And in Maine, it's the Division of Public Health System. So each agency is going to be a little different name as to where they might be for different states. So how are we going to find them? And this picture here is the Massachusetts State Archives, built around the same time as the City Hall. So again, like I said, if you're looking for Massachusetts and you know the town or the city, you'd want to go right to the town or the city clerk's office. The procedure is going to vary from place to place. Some of them you can fill out a form online and you're all set. Some of them you will need to print out a form, fill it out and mail it in. Some of them you'll be able to call, and some of them you will need to go in person. It really depends on how each office is run. And there generally are going to be fees, but this will vary. It varies from place to place. But one thing I can say will probably be cheaper than trying to get it through the state archives or the Vital Records Office. They're not dealing with as much volume, so they don't charge as much for the service. So if you do know where the event occurred, go right to that city clerk or town clerk's office. It'll be much quicker and much cheaper. So if you're trying to figure out, okay, what do we call that? Then just Google can be very helpful in this instance. Just Google the name of the city or town followed by clerk, the clerk's office, or try searching for the name of the town, city, and vital records if the first method doesn't work. I'm going to show you a couple examples here. So for instance, for Framingham, pull that up here. So for them, it's the city clerk. We're gonna take a look here. So a lot of these are gonna look different. So so some will have it right over here. So Framingham is pretty easy. Click on birth, marriage, and death certificates, and then it'll tell you right away how to do it. So it looks like, yeah, they charge $15, which is pretty reasonable. There you go. So that'll tell you. So this one is by mail or in person. So that's how Framingham works. Well, one thing I want to make sure you note, if you're looking for a town or city that has a common name, like for instance, Springfield, there's one in every state, put the name of the state after it. If you just put Springfield vital records, you're going to get a bunch of different Springfields. You'll probably get Illinois, might get other states. So definitely put in the name of the state. People from more unique sounding towns probably won't have that problem, but me. But for Springfield, definitely put in the state. So let's take a look at theirs. So you can see this is laid out a little different. So this is right on they have the vital records page. And again, so they charge $20. Like I said, they're all going to be different. And looks like they do accept online forms. So you'll see this a lot, particularly if you're looking at bigger states. Vital Check is the main one that a lot of states use. Some places will have their own payment systems, but a lot of places use Vital Check. It's the biggest company that handles things like this. It is a little bit more expensive. I got a record from Illinois once, and once you factored in all the processing fees and shipping fees and all that, it got up there. It was something around $50. So just that's something to keep in mind. So you'll be seeing Vital Check a lot if you're going to be requesting a lot of records here. Let's see if I can. All right, close that tab. Okay. So for Massachusetts, like I said, this is just some basic information. So if you don't know where in Massachusetts it is, if you're looking from 1841 to 1930, that's the state archives. They do take requests by mail, email, and in person. They do not take requests by phone. They do have a phone number, but they will not take orders over the phone. And they're actually pretty cheap. They are $3 each, but however, the state archives does a lot of stuff. They do a lot of record requests. So it'll take a little longer to get it from them because they have a lot of record requests they have to pile through. So for the Registry of Vital Records and Statistics, they take requests online, by mail, on the phone, and in person. So whatever method works best for you, they can do. However, they are a little more expensive depending on the type of request you're making. It can vary anywhere from $20 to $62.50, and that's just and that's per request. If you have one order and you're looking for multiple records, you multiply that. So that's why I really recommend, if you know the place and it's for that time period, go to the city clerk's office. It'll be much, much, much cheaper. I think the most expensive that I've seen so far from Massachusetts is $20. They don't charge $62.50. Okay, so we do have some resources at the BPL. This is a picture from somewhere in the 19th century. Those of you who are familiar with the history, that is Huntington Abbey used to cut right through Copper Square Park. I just think those are cool. All right. So for books, there actually are books that have this information. We call them the tan books in the library world because they're tan. Very appropriate. These are books that were published in the early 20th century. They were compiled beginning in the late 19th century into the early 20th century. There was these groups that would pull together records primarily from churches, so there would be some municipal records, and they would compile everything from the earliest available records from the founding of the city or town all the way to 1849, 1850 was their cutoff point. So these are Really, really handy, particularly if you're looking for colonial era records, because sometimes churches were the only ones keeping those records. So, oh, I might need to fix this. Those are in the Elliott room now. So these are available. These are on the open shelves on the second floor of the Central Library in Copley Square and the fancy old building. It's the McKim building. They're just on the open shelf. So if you want to look at some of these, you can just go right in and pull them off the shelf and take a look. You don't need to request them from the desk, but we'll be happy to show them to you when you get here if you need help finding them. So those are the main things that we will have for vital records. They are going to be, depending on how big the place is and how many records they have, it can vary from 1 to 6 volumes. Oftentimes they'll be separated out. They'll have 1 volume for births, one for death, 1 for marriages, or they'll combine 2 of those and put 1 in the other one. Some places I've seen have 6 volumes because they have a lot of records to work with. So, like I said, so this collection, that is the open shelf. That is for Massachusetts only. It doesn't cover any other places, but we do have some random vital records from other places, usually because someone donated the book to us. So you can see here, if you just do a search for vital records, first one that comes up is actually from Seneca County in New York. And then you'll see some of these. The titles you'll see will be pretty much the same. A lot of them, these are the TAN books. They'll say vital records of so-and-so to the year 1850 or to the year 1849. That's what most of what you're going to see comes up when you do a search for this, but we do have some, I know we have some for Rhode Island, and we obviously have some for New York. I think we might have some for Connecticut. I'm not 100% sure on that. So there you go. So we do have some. If you're looking for other places, we do have a few, but our collection is primarily Massachusetts. A lot of public libraries, if they have genealogy collections, will also have these. Some of the bigger public libraries will also have the same set of TAN books. So if you live elsewhere in Massachusetts, you might be able to get them at your local library. I'm not sure if other states have something similar, but some of them might. So it's always worth checking the local library. The other books that we have that will have records for specifically for Boston. So these are helpful if you're looking for the colonial era Boston or the Boston Record Commissioner's Reports. So this was a commission that was put together by the City of Boston in the late 19th century. And it says here, and I quote, to complete as far as practicable the record of births, deaths, and marriages in the town and city of Boston prior to AD 1849. So what this group did, they went around to all the churches, all these other places to cobble together the records. Originally, their focus was for births, deaths, and marriages, but they wound up doing a bunch of other stuff. You can see here, there's town records, a tax list, some land records, and then wound up doing the selectmen records and the town records. But we're going to look at is here, Boston births, and that covers 1700 to 1800. These are all online. So you can look at them on the Internet Archive. Let me make this a little bigger because the print is rather small. There you go. So this volume, it is organized chronologically. So it starts with the year 1700 and then it's organized alphabetically by last name. But the kicker is they don't put the last name first. It's at the end of the line. So that can be a little tricky to find the name you're looking at. So it is alphabetical by last name. You can see here it's there. And there are some mistakes. If you can see, they went all Allen, Alden, Allen. So not perfect in a perfect alphabetical order, so I say it's roughly in alphabetical order. But this is really, really useful if you're looking for someone born in Boston in the colonial era, because you see this covers the 1700s. And these did all come from, these all came from church records. You can see up ahead here, so you can see here, eventually it'll go to a new year. So it can be a little tedious to look through it, particularly if you're not sure exactly what year it is, but this is really helpful for that time period. And we also randomly have an index of births in the city of Boston for 1916. Why 1916? I don't know, but it's something they did. So we have it, and it is also online. So this is organized alphabetically by last name, and then you have first name, and so then it has the name of the child, the name of the parents, the date of birth, and that is the certificate, that is the record number for that year. So oh, that's great. So we have Jenny saying her grandfather is in there, so that's pretty cool. So there you go. So there's not, so yeah, so you can see here, so you'll see the earlier numbers, they are smaller. So this one in January was number 523, and this one from November, we get into 5 digits. So those are just issued in the order that they came in. You can see here, we used to have a paperclip on there that left a stain, which is not great. Okay, so if you happen to have someone born in Boston in 1916, they'll be in here. Like I said, I don't know why we have this, but we do. And we also have databases that will have this. So Ancestry Library Edition is the big one, and it is unfortunately only available for in-library use only at any BPL location if you don't live at the BPL. Most big enough public libraries in the state will have it, so you can probably find a library near you that has it, so you'll be able to get to all this stuff. So if you go in there, if you scroll down here, it's one of their rare categories, so they have a tile for it, so you can just click on that. Okay, so let's say I want to look for my great grandfather. So we're gonna I'm gonna pop in his last name. I'm not quite sure what year he was born. You know, he was born in Massachusetts. So let's click there. And there we go. So right here, I can tell you, oh, okay. I forgot he was born in Huntington. Okay, so this is useful again. This is one good way if you're, again, this is only prior to 1915. So if you're looking for that time period, before that time period, you're not 100% sure where and when, this is a good way to figure that out. So now let's click on this. There we go. So what will come up is a transcription, which is true for most things on here. A lot of record sets in Ancestry will also have images. If there is an image of the record, I always recommend that you click on it because there'll be more information in there than what is transcribed. So let's zoom this on in, see if we can find him. And there we go. So this is just the 27th entry on the page that tells you his birth date. This column right here is just the date it was recorded. So they're not always going to be recorded right away. That tells you, so he was born in Huntington, it tells you his parents' names, and depending on what time period you're looking at, it'll also tell you the mother's maiden name. That can also be a good bit of information to get if you're researching their person's mother. You can get their maiden name and then try tracing them. And I'll tell you the occupation of the father, where they were born. And it looks like, I believe they were both born in New York. Yes, so it has birthplace of the father, birthplace of the mother, which for both of them was New York. Sometimes, depending on the time period and where you're looking at, it'll actually tell you the address of where they lived when they were born. And in older times, that was probably also where the child was born because a lot of people did home birth. So he was probably born at home. Most people were, but there you go. And we're lucky here. The handwriting is fairly easy to read. That's another thing you got to be watchful for. Again, not just for vital records, for any record that you're looking at. Handwriting can be a little tricky. And we're pretty lucky here. This is decent handwriting. I've seen some truly awful, awful handwriting in some of these records. So that's just something to be on the watch for. Can be kind of hard to make out sometimes. So that's Henry Archie's birth record. So that's what you can find in Ancestry. And again, they were spoiled for Massachusetts. They have a lot. They do have some for other states. As I say, no, they do also have New Hampshire, which is really cool. And so another resource we have is American Ancestors, which you can only access at the Central Library. It's not as big as Ancestry.com, so I'm not sure how many other libraries will have that around, but it's definitely something you can come in and use if you are in the area. So let's see, so we're going to go here so we can show you. So you can go by type, you can look for a birth record. So let's see if I just want to, let's just see if they have the same one. And we'll pop in Henry Archie. So now I remember it was Huntington. Let's see if they have anything in here. There we go. So they also have that here. So this is not my great grandfather. That's one of his younger brothers. Yeah, they had the same, they have very similar names. They really liked the name Henry, but so they also have that record here, but they have different records. So for instance, they also have published family genealogies. They have genealogy periodicals. This is the oldest genealogy society in the country, and they have the oldest genealogical journal in the country. So it's pretty cool. Other thing you can do, so you can just pick a collection to look at. So for instance, right here, this just caught my eye. They have baptisms for Barbados from 1739 to 1891. So that's pretty cool. Their collection does primarily focus on New England, but you can see right here, they do have stuff from elsewhere. So this is definitely, if you're able to get a search here, you can definitely find stuff. So they also have church records here. So this is for a church, for a couple churches in New Hampshire. So church records were the early, going to be the oldest resources for things like this before the government was tracking things. The church records are what you're going to want to go for. They just have a ton of things. This is just really worthwhile. If you're ever able to do a search, I highly recommend it. They also have some free resources. So let's see if I can figure out how to, okay. So if we go to the A to Z list over here, we'll click on only free. So they have right now, they're up to 91 free databases, and that keeps expanding and expanding. You can see here some of them are vital records, like they have one of the free databases is Alabama from deaths from 1908 to 1974. And then you have some cemetery records in Boston. Cemetery records can also be a good way to get this kind of information, probate records. So definitely check this one out. Another cool thing, the two major projects that I want to mention, one of them is the GU's 272 Descendants Project, which if you haven't heard of it, was Georgetown University. There was a project to research all of the living and locate all the living descendants of the 272 enslaved people that were sold by the operators of Georgetown University to fund an expansion of the campus. So that is a free resource. So if you have African American ancestry from DC around that time, this can be a good resource. The other major project I'd like to mention is, I don't always have a hard time finding it, is they have the Boston Archdiocese records. So that one, where did it go? Okay, always hard to find here. There we go. So the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Boston, there's an ongoing project to digitize and transcribe these. So unfortunately, if you want to search the transcriptions, you do have to use a paid subscription, but if you just want to look at the images, you can, that collection is free. We're just going to pick a volume at random here. Let's do Cambridge Marriages, 1909. So these are all going to be different. Sometimes they would use purpose-built notebooks that was particularly meant for it. Like for instance, this one, it's particularly laid out. Sometimes I've seen this, it's just an accounting ledger that was repurposed. And if you get lucky, like in this one, there'll be an index that will tell you what page each entry is on, but we're just gonna Let's pick a random page here. The other issue is there's two other issues. Again, a lot of them are going to be handwritten, so they can be tough to read. Okay. The other issue here, and you can see that here, is they like to use Latin. So a lot of it is going to be in Latin. If you understand Latin, you're golden. If you don't, then you might want to come in and use a paid subscription because then the transcribed records, they translate it into English. So this one isn't too bad because the Latin parts are printed out and they left the name as is. So this, for instance, here, someone named Anthony. In some records, they Latinize the names. So this person would have been Antonius instead of Anthony, and Mary would have been Maria, and so on and so forth. Sometimes I wonder, how did they figure out how to Latinize these names? Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. So that's another thing to keep in mind. These can be really tricky. This was actually one of the better examples I've seen. If you look at some of the fully handwritten ledgers, those can be a little tough, but it's still pretty useful if you're having a hard, especially if you're having a hard time finding the information you're looking for. Okay. Yes, I got this. All right. There's also newspapers. Me. These can be another great alternative resource for finding this information or figuring or going ahead with the information you find in a vital record once you found it. The obituaries are the big things that a lot of folks look for, but you can find other things. Birth announcements, which are not super common. You'll tend to find them more in smaller town newspapers, and that's more of a 20th century thing. They're not going to be for everyone. The newspaper has a fairly robust society section. You'll get engagement and wedding announcements. And if you're really lucky, you'll get a picture, which is pretty cool. I found my grandmother's wedding announcement once, and there was a picture of her in it, which is great. But obituaries are the big one because that way you get a fuller picture of the person's life and you get more information about people they were associated with. So parents, sometimes the list surviving children, spouses. So that's another good way to get that information. And an important point for obituaries, we do need an exact date of death if you're requesting one from us. So that's why you need to get the death record first if you're not sure what that is. So I'm not going to go on too much about this. I do teach another class on this periodically. You can see recordings of that in our YouTube channel. And we also have a lovely research guide that's put together by one of my colleagues. We have a very big collection of newspapers, particularly in microfilm. It's one of the reasons why we get so many requests from all over the country for obituaries. Because we have a huge collection, and there are some on microfilm that we are the only ones that have them. Let's see. So I'm just going to give you a little preview. So this listing right here is just for Boston. See, there's 18 pages. So there's a lot. And again, this is just Boston. It's very extensive. So this is just a little small percentage of what we have. We also have in the genealogy research guide, which again, there's links to all of these in your handout, and you'll also get the slides after, so you don't have to worry about copying it down. In our research guide, we have step-by-step how to look up obituaries. Okay. So onto other resources. So this right here, I just want to talk about this image. This is from one of those TAN books. This is for Malden, and this is birth. So they're all going to be laid out fairly similarly here. This one includes some codes about where the records came from and different numbers, but most of them will be laid out like this. They'll have the last name, and then they'll have the child's first name, and then the name of the parents. Sometimes, in this case, just the father. Not sure what that's all about. They usually have the father and the mother and the date of birth. And one thing to keep in mind, a lot of these, they're not necessarily the date of birth, they're the date of the baptism. Sometimes that's all we're going to have. So you would have an approximation of when they were born. For instance, if you can see this record right here, just there's no name. The child was born October 1667. If there's no name recorded, chances are that child was probably either stillborn or died shortly after birth. So you will see those occasionally. So some of these records are actually online and not in Ancestry. The Massachusetts Archives has done a project with Family Search to digitize their records. Right now, I believe, just on this, there we go. So this will tell you, so they've gotten up to 1930. So they're in two different places here. There's the digital repository. Okay, being tricky. There we go. Okay, it's taking a minute to load. It's very graphics heavy. There's a lot of data here, so there we go. So they have a digital repository. It's a little tricky to search, I will admit. So I would actually recommend this other link here, Family Search. So they've also uploaded all of these to Family Search. And they have various collections covering Massachusetts up to 2001. So there's a lot of them in here. You do have to register, but it is completely free. So let's see, am I signed in? I am not signed in, so I will do that. You can take a look at this. You don't have to be signed in to do a search, but eventually you'll only be able to go so far. But like I said, it's completely free. Wait. There we go. So again, let's say, want to see what they have for good old Henry. Okay, and just for the heck of it, because I know he lived in Huntington, he was born in Huntington, so let's see. I think that was in Hampshire County. Okay. Okay, so let's just see what comes up. Oh, they don't have anything. Okay. So now we're going to revise our search and just say Massachusetts. Huh. Okay, so I guess so again, not everything is in there. So I'm just curious now about what they might have for anyone in his family. So let's see. There we go. So I am related to all of these people, I'm fairly certain, so just FYI. So this might be another reason this record, they have his middle name. So for this one, you kind of you do need to fiddle around with your search terms, but yeah, like I said, I am related to all of these people. Let's click on Elric here. Okay, so this is, let's see. Okay, so this is a good point to make. So not all of the images are going to be available in here. For some things, you do need to go to a family search center or an affiliate library in order to see it. Some images you'll be able to see, some you can't. So this one, you do need to be an affiliate. We're working on becoming an affiliate. I'm hopeful it will happen sometime this year. So hopefully soon we will be able to get those, but for now we can't. But there you can see a transcription. So this is vital records. So this is actually a marriage record for Elric. This will tell you approximately when he was born. It'll tell you his parents' names. It'll tell you his spouse's name and her parents and when they were married. So they were married on November 7th, 1995 in Hinsdale. So even though you can't see the image, you can still get the information you need and it'll actually break it down for you down here. Again, that is just Massachusetts. I'm not sure other states might have similar programs, but I'm not quite sure. Some of them might. So there are also some just general resources, not that'll cover the entire country, sometimes other countries. The biggest one here, these are just the biggest ones. There's other ones here, but these will cover quite a bit. So these are cemetery records. So let's say I wanted to try someone from the other side of the family. There we go. So just for the heck of it, okay. So none of these are him. So Wheeler's a pretty common name. Well, I want to just show you what it looks like. So for the heck of it, let's say this is the person I'm looking for. So this will tell you what cemetery they're buried in. It'll actually even give you GPS settings. So, and it'll pull up a little map, the address, give you some history about the cemetery. So if you did want to go see it, and then it'll give you a list of everyone who's buried there. So you can see if anyone else in that family is there. There's also Find a Grave. So I will say the caveat with all of these is they are based on user submissions. So take some of them with a grain of salt. So let's put Hosea in here. So I do know he's buried in Massachusetts. There we go. This is the one I'm looking for. Okay. So I'm only related to these two so far as I know. So this is my Civil War ancestor. This is my 2 times great grandfather. So again, this is you based on user submissions, but why this is cool is there are some folks who will just go around cemeteries just taking pictures. So otherwise, I don't know if I would have ever been able to see his headstone. So there you go right there. Sometimes there'll be more pictures. Sometimes the people will upload pictures of the person. So they can, and this one includes some information. So he did die in the Civil War, so it gives you a little bit of information on his service. So this is information that you can use to do more researching. Again, user submissions, so don't take it as gospel fact, but you can use that to, corroborate it and then back up the information. But I can tell you just I've done a lot of research. This is all pretty accurate here. And then there's Billion Graves, which is another one. So let's just try Hosea again and see if he's in here. There we go. This is a bunch of people. So these also will have pictures here. It'll tell you information about where they were buried, again, based on user submissions, but these are vetted a little bit more. So you won't necessarily get as much false information as you might get on Find a Grave. All right. So this information here, so this is a very important link to have if you're looking for records from other states. This will tell you where to go. So for instance, if we scroll down here, let's say you're looking for Ohio, and go to the entry for Ohio, it'll tell you where to request different records. It will tell you what dates are available, how to request them. Sometimes it will include the fees. So this one, it varies. Again, this may not be 100% up to date, but this can give you a pretty good indication of where you need to go. Looks like for Ohio, it's the Department of Health. So that's going to be true for a lot of the states. It's Health and Human Services, Health Department. A lot of them are those are generally the agencies that you'll be dealing with around the country. So this is another one. If you're doing a lot of this kind of research for all over the country, I recommend bookmarking this just so you have one place where you can find all that information so you don't have to do a ton of Googling. Okay. So this one here, this is done by, this is another free resource. So this will give you links to different online records. So let's go back to Massachusetts. So this will tell you kind of what I was already explaining before, what is available online, in which place. They'll also have some counties. There are some societies that will have projects. So for instance, there is an ongoing project for Barnstable County for gravestone records. for Cape Cod. So there's a lot. So this is might just be one person. Yeah, this one in particular is just one person who's doing it. Sometimes there'll be a genealogical society. Sometimes it might be a library. So these are things that can, if you're having a hard time finding it in the state records, if you know where an event occurred, you can try looking through here and seeing if they have it. So this one is useful. It is exactly what it says, U.S. citizens' deaths overseas. Not necessarily everyone, because it does depend on it being reported properly. And they do only have patent, they only have 20 years worth. So it's kind of limited, but if you are looking for someone who, a US citizen who died overseas during this time period from 2002 to 2022, you'll be able to find information there. So we mentioned a little earlier, divorce records, those can also be useful. However, they're a little bit harder to get to because in Massachusetts anyway, so you will need to know which court handled the divorce. So you need to know what county it was in, and you will need to know the docket number. So that's why they're not used as much, because they're a little bit harder to get at. But you can still get them because they are still considered public record. If you don't know this information, and most likely you would not know the docket number, the state has information about how to find it on their website, if that is something you're interested in looking for. So I think we're doing good. So these are just, we're not going to go too much in depth into these, but if you are looking for, there are things like wills that could have more information, because oftentimes things will be left to families and they'll say, I leave to my son, so-and-so, and this and such. So you can get an idea of who the person's family was and all that. So again, the state website has a lot of information about how to get access to them. So we're just going to look at this one. Okay, so this will just go into how you can get to them. Some older records are going to be in Family Search, which is what we looked at a little bit ago. So you can get some of these online. More recent ones, you might need to physically go to an archive in order to get them. These can be handy, particularly if you're having a hard time finding the information elsewhere. All right, so those are the end of my slides. So I think we have a couple of questions here. So if you do have a question, please feel free to pop it into the chat. Let's see. So yes, so Adrienne said $3 copy from the archives. No wonder they're busy. Exactly. Okay, so Angie's asking, is there a free family tree website which allows you to organize and plot your family members? So as I mentioned, familysearch.org is free. Also, some of the websites like ancestry.com, you can register for an account that is free, where you can build a family tree. The only downside to that is you can't import any records into it. You have to manually put everything in. I think that's true for most of the big genealogy websites. They'll have free accounts that people can have to put things in. But yes, there are free. But if you're looking for that, I would recommend Family Search, because that's completely free. And you can pull in records from there. So if that's what you're looking for, definitely I would recommend Family Search. So Adrienne is asking, what towns are included in the TAN books? So that was, I believe they did that for every city and town in Massachusetts. We do not have all of them. We have a lot, but we have mostly for Eastern Massachusetts and Central Mass, and a few for Western Mass. But if you're looking for one of the TAN books for a place that we don't have, try contacting the library where the records came from, because chances are they will have it. So libraries in Central Mass are more likely to have the TAN books for Central Mass. So I believe they did those for all of the cities and towns. So Angie is asking, do you plan to do a class on how to research enslaved ancestors? We have done a few programs on that. I don't know if any of them were recorded. You can take a look at our YouTube channel. That's something that I don't have a great amount of expertise on. So I have gotten guest speakers in the past, but if that's something you're interested in, I do I will definitely do that again because I know that's information that a lot of people are looking for. So yes, I will definitely do that again. But Christine's asking, do you know of a way to get records from Cuba? Not off the top of my head, that is a little sticky for obvious reasons, but for something specific you're looking for, feel free to send us an email and then we can look into it and get back to you. But like, I don't know off the top of my head, that because there's issues with the relations of the country and a lot of records might have been destroyed. So that's something we'd have to look into. So shoot us an email if you have something specific you're looking for. So Adrienne is asking, is there a good place to build a tree that allows you to import a tree from Ancestry.com? So that is possible. So what you can do, I'm going to show you on I'm going to see if I can find this. Let me see if I can get back to the browser. There we go. Okay. So I forget what the file name because there is a type of file. So I'm going to show you on one of these. Okay, let me see. There is a way to do that. I haven't done it in a while. It's somewhere in your profile, there's an option to download your family tree file. I have done this in the past, but it was a very long time ago. So I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I'm not sure where that is. There is a way to do that. There is a type of file name that is somewhat universal for family trees, and you can upload it to other websites. I did that. Well, it was 23andMe, which is going defunct basically, so I wouldn't recommend that one. It is possible, though. I would say contact Ancestry.com's customer service. They're generally pretty good, and someone will get back to you and they can tell you how to do that. Okay, so Deborah says, I find it become rather overwhelmed when searching for various people. That's true, that can happen. I'm fortunate to have most of the names of ancestors, but trying to find documents and when and how they immigrated to the US becomes difficult. Yes, it can. Definitely finding immigration records can be really, really hard. You basically have to have a really, really good idea of when they came and where they landed. There isn't one universal way to search all of the available ports of entry or entry points in the US. So that can be very tricky. I've been looking for one of my German ancestors, immigration passenger records for over a decade now, and I still haven't found it. So I understand. Yeah, it can be very, very difficult. It's just something you either got to keep plugging away at it or step away from it for a little while, try looking for something else, and then come back to it later when you might have more energy for it. Okay, so Barbara's asking, do you have any ideas for death records for Massachusetts fishermen in 1900 to 1910? So they're not going to be separated out. Even if they died at sea, what Massachusetts does is the death record would be filed, the city and town where the person died, and also where they were living at the time of their death. So, for instance, if they died in Boston, but they lived in Cambridge, both Boston and Cambridge will have death records for him. So, if you know where they were living, so if they did die at sea, something like that, if you knew where they lived, you'd want to go to where they lived and find the record there, that they will be the ones that would have it. Oh, yes. Oh, I forgot about Steve Morse. So yeah, Toby is suggesting Steve Morse for immigration. That is very true. That can be a pretty good resource. There's also Cindy's list. It also has a lot of information. Okay. So Adrian's asking, will many towns allow people to look at original documents when they create a certified copy, at least half the information off that was on the original document? So that's going to vary. Some places will let you go in and look at the book. It depends really on local ordinances, and also it might depend on who filled the request or who was working that day. So that's just something you just got to keep trying to see if you can get the information you want. Okay, so Nancy is asking, if I were to come to the Boston Library to do genealogy research in person, where do I go? You would want to come see us in my department. That is on the second floor of the McKim building. So that's the Dartmouth Street entrance, and it's called the Washington Room. So called because there's a giant portrait of George Washington on the wall above the desk. So that's where you would go for help. I will say that if you do decide to come in, you should have a really good idea of what exactly you're looking for. If there's a specific piece of information you're looking for, a specific record you're looking for, you have a pretty good idea of what you're hoping to find, so we can help you better. Okay, so Adrian's asking, the live chat link, is that genealogy help or general library help? That's general library help. So if you have a question about anything to do with the BPL, if you have an account and you forgot your PIN, or if you want to ask if we have a book, if the live chat is running, you can do any of that. I wouldn't recommend really putting genealogy questions in there, because what will happen is the operator will ask for email address and submit it to the email anyway. So it's really more for quick questions. I mean, if you have a quick question like, do you have this book, this family history book, we can probably do that over the chat. But the lady who does the chat is not me. I'm sometimes on there, but not always. So if you have a genealogy question, you're probably better off just sending an email. But if you have a basic question, yeah, try the chat if it's open. So Deborah's asking, is Ancestry Library only for libraries, and would my local library have access to it? It is only for libraries. Ancestry has a different subscription levels. So the library version, the main difference with that and the regular version is you can't have an individual account and do a family tree in there. That's really the main difference. Is you can see the public family trees, but you can't create your own family tree and add to it. That's the main difference. You would need to check with your local library to see if they have it. They might. Like I said earlier, a lot of public libraries all over the country have it. It's one of, if not the most popular genealogy databases that exists. So if you live in a big enough town that has a good sized library, they will probably have it. So Adrian's saying that their local library has it and you can access it from home. So that's great. Boston, you can't access it from home. They might have an arrangement there, which is awesome. You're very fortunate. We did during COVID lockdown period, we did have remote access to it, but they cut that off a while ago. So you do have to come into the library to use that, but it's really, really popular. So you can probably get to it somewhere near you. All right, so we don't have any, I think that's it. So we're just gonna wait a couple of minutes to see if anyone else has any questions. So in the meantime, I will do some shameless self-promotion. So our next event for genealogy will be on May 29th. It is called, come on now, DNA and Your Revolutionary Ancestors. We will have a guest speaker, a professional genealogist, Jennifer Zink, who will be talking about how to use DNA results, DNA testing to research your Revolutionary War ancestors. And our next and final class for the spring will be genealogy researching your Revolutionary War ancestors. So I will be talking about how to do regular research, not so much DNA. That's why I'm not that good with DNA. That's why I hired a speaker. She knows about it and she can tell you all about that. So there will also be information about those in your email that you'll be getting tomorrow if you're interested in registering for those. Right, so I think that looks like that's it. Oh, okay, well, thank you, Adrienne. So yeah, definitely, if you're interested, go for it. Okay. All right, so I think that's probably it. So we will wrap up now. Thank you everyone for coming. We love doing these things. It's great that we're able to help everyone online. We get a good audience this way. And I will hopefully see you all soon and have a good night.